Welcome back to the Cheap Heat Productions podcast. Okay, welcome back to the show. And today I've got a very familiar face on your screens. A man that was in the WWE for 22 years as a referee, Mr. Jimmy Korderas. How are you today?
I'm doing well, man. I love that intro because you got me to pop when I saw guys like Butterbean and Sabu and stuff like that. So it's awesome. Thank you for having me, Maurice.
No, thank you for coming on, man. I've been fortunate enough to have a few interesting people from the world of entertainment. I didn't base this directly on wrestling, but obviously I have a strong interest in wrestling. A lot of my friends do. So anytime there's a wrestling guest coming on, they're always interested, and they're definitely interested in hearing what you have to say today as well.
Oh, cool. Well, thank you. Hopefully I don't disappoint.
I'm sure you won't disappoint. So to bring it to the beginning, how did you become involved in this world?
I was a huge fan since I was a kid, and growing up here in Toronto, we were fortunate enough to get a lot of wrestling on television on the weekends and from different parts of the country. Like, obviously we had Maple Leaf Wrestling, which was Toronto-based or Ontario-based here, but we used to get, the Buffalo affiliate channels from the U.S., Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling. Then we'd get AEW Wrestling on a different channel, and then later on we'd get International Wrestling from Montreal, which was all the Edward Carpentiers and stuff like that. We got Stampede Wrestling from Calgary on television up here from a different channel, and then Saturday nights, which was hockey night here in Canada. After that, we'd get All-Star Wrestling from Vancouver. So it was hard not to be a wrestling fan because you got so much of it. And then when I went to my first live event as a 10-year-old, which my neighbor and his dad took us, I was hooked for life. You couldn't get it out of me.
Yeah. And how did you decide you wanted to be a referee? Did you ever decide to step into the ring as a performer before that?
Always, you have that in the back of your mind as a fan. You're like, what would it be like to get in the ring and actually do what these guys are doing? But, it wasn't like it was a conscious effort where I said, you know what, I'd love to become a referee or I'd love to become a wrestler. I ended up befriending someone who worked for Jack Tunney, who was the WWF president back in the day, but he was the promoter here in Toronto. And he introduced me to Jack, and under the pretense of taking pictures for the magazine, because I used to take pictures as a fan, and I'd go back to Maple Leaf Gardens and try and sell them, for $2 a picture, which would fuel my wrestling habit, so to speak. But he caught me outside and said, it's kind of illegal. And I went, uh-oh. He said, well, don't worry about it. Just don't do it outside the building where everybody can see you. Just trying to do it. But we became friends, and he introduced me to Jack, and under the pretense of, maybe taking photos for their program and stuff like that. He said, well, we don't need another photographer here, but we'll find something for the kid to do. And I started off doing the menial jobs. Jack would say, here, take the keys to my car and go to the Marriott by the airport and pick up Hulk Hogan and bring him down here. And I'd be like, on the inside, I'm going, holy cow, I'm going to pick up Hulk Hogan. But on the inside, yes, sir, whatever you need, but then, it's like, yeah. But it started off that way. And after a while of doing that, Pat Patterson, who was the head agent at the time, just said, hey, Jack, we've got the kid here. He sits around here all day. What we waiting for us to get him to do so? Why don't we use him? We'll make him a referee. And Jack says, and I'm standing right there. It's not like and Jack says, well, do we want to smarten the kid up? And Pat says to him, he's in the locker room with the boys. He kind of has an idea what's going on. Let's take advantage of it. Maybe, if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out, whatever. So Pat told me to get black pants, black shoes, a blue shirt, and a black bow tie and carry it with me at all times. And eventually the time came for me to referee, and then it worked out, thank goodness.
How difficult is it being a referee at that level? And would you explain to people kind of what your role is? Because you're not just there and you're thrown into the ring. Like, there's much more to the job than that.
Yeah. Again, as someone who's learned over the years, but one of the things that people don't realize too is you continuously learn because everything changes, everything evolves. But at the same time, the referee's main purpose, I discovered after many years, was not to be a distraction, but your main goal is to help the talent tell their story in a match, and without being part of that story, without being a distraction. You're somewhat invisible without being visible and a distraction. One of the analogies I use is whether supporting actors or something like that, but a musical reference. Casey and the Sunshine Band. We all know who Casey is, but we have no idea who the guys in the Sunshine Band are. But it's okay because without the Sunshine Band, there's no Casey. If that makes sense.
Yeah. So you're part of the thing, the foundation's holding it together, basically.
Hopefully, yeah. If you're doing your job correctly, you're allowing the talent to tell their story and help facilitate that as best you can.
Yeah. And when you're a referee in WWE for all those years, do you have to practice much or train much, or what's your regime like, say, on a weekly basis when you were getting ready to go on the road?
Basically, for me, it was like watching back matches and seeing what, not only my own matches, but other matches as well, and seeing what I can improve on, and seeing stuff that, getting to learn from some of the best in the business, like Timmy White and the Hebners, and even guys like Tommy Young and just Tim, just soaking in all the knowledge from them, and not only from them, but also from the boys and the girls themselves, the talent, that, offering advice, but watching something back and saying, oh, I could have done this differently. Maybe if this circumstance presents itself again, maybe I should react this way. It's kind of like talent does. Try it out, see if it works. And that's what the live events and house shows were for. You don't experiment on TV for life. You know what I mean? But that's the way I did it. I watched back matches, everybody's match, and kind of took little bits and pieces of stuff there and thought, yeah, this could be better. I could work on this kind of stuff.
That's one thing. I actually had a question down there about that, because I've never been to a live WWE show televised, we'll say, but I've been to many house shows in Ireland. Mm-hmm. It's so different on a house show compared to TV. Like, you guys are all there, you're all having fun, the talent's having fun. Yeah. Is it much more enjoyable to do events like that when that red light isn't there with the pressure?
I hate to use the word more enjoyable, but it's more relaxed. Let's put it that way. It's a lot more fun, like you said, in a sense that TV is so structured. Like, for example, okay, for this match we have 12 minutes, and that's, you know what I mean? Yeah. That's your time block. So me as a referee, I'm also, not only am I also helping facilitate them guys putting their match together, but I'm also listening and saying, okay, guys, we got 7 minutes left, or 5 minutes left. And then it's getting cool. Guys, we got to go. We got to hit our time, that sort of stuff. Whereas at a house show or live event, they'll say, go to 10 to 12. If you go 15, it won't be that bad, So, and there you get to feel the audience a little more. And that's when you start saying, hey, I did this in the match. That seemed to get a response. Let me try that on television. Mm-hmm. So that's where you kind of, gauge and see what works in front of a live crowd.
And would you get the freedom to make those decisions based on, I want to try this on TV, or would writers or Vince or anyone be saying, no, you can't do this, you have to do the referee in this way or that way? Or was there any freedom there for you?
No, we were kind of structured. This is the way it works. This is, you're there to enforce the rules. Obviously, in a sports type of setting, there are rules that should be followed, but and present it as best you can as a sport. Because we all know that it is sports entertainment, if that's the new word, right? But at the same time, you're trying to present it as an actual sport. So the referees, like I said, job is to help the guys tell their story, but also do it in a fashion where you look like you're the authoritative figure in the ring as well. So there is a standard set of rules, but like you said, at house shows and live events, we had a little bit of freedom to have a little bit of fun at times, as long as the guys were okay with it. If they weren't okay with it, you ain't gonna do it.
Yeah. I noticed that, like, at the shows I was at, the live events, like the announcers and the referees were a lot more relaxed and having fun and things like that.
Yeah.
I had writer Dan Madigan on that we talked about before the show. Dan is responsible for some good shit. Is that what Vince would call it?
That's good shit, pal.
But he was saying that you would often come up with ideas for him based on what you'd see in the ring, and he'd kind of take those ideas forward. But it seemed like they mightn't have listened to it because you're not a writer or something like that. But Dan was saying, like, this guy's in the ring every night, but you didn't really have any creative control, though, as a referee in WWE, would you?
Not really. I mean, some guys, it depended on the talents too. Most of the talents were acceptive of ideas, and also you have to present it in a certain way. You don't want to sound like you're all knowing and, hey, I got to figure it out and stuff like that. You come up with an idea. I credit Eddie Guerrero a lot for this. Thank you so much. Like, especially during that era of lie, cheat, and steal. Because I was very shy about presenting ideas. Something would pop in my head, and Eddie was the first one to notice it, and he'd say, what do you got? I said, what are you talking about? He said, I saw that look. Something popped in your head. What was it? I said, well, he says, no, spit it out, man. And so he says, if you get an idea, don't be afraid to spit it out. I'm very acceptive. Most guys are acceptive. You just got to be respectful in the way you present your idea. And when you talk about Dan was one of a lot of the writers that I interacted with, even the Brian Gerwitz and stuff like that, it's more like, hey, do you have a minute? I got an idea that I could throw by you, that kind of sort of thing. And they were fine with listening. And Dan was one of the more open guys, let's put it that way, to listening to ideas from guys like myself. Because I know the stigma of a referee, he hasn't actually been a wrestler. So we're there, we learn, we pay attention, we listen. I always had my ears open anyways. Getting to learn from some of the best talents ever to do this. So, I'm not saying I'm knowing all, but I have learned a lot of things over the years.
How many matches do you think you've refereed in your career?
Oh my goodness. I wish, because Chris Jericho just had releasing a new book, and he had written everything down. It makes me wish that I had done something like that myself, because, for example, guys would wrestle a match, maybe 2 matches a night. We would referee, especially in live events, 3, sometimes 4 matches a night. So, I don't know how many thousands of matches, but it just, I wish I had kept track of stuff like that.
The list of Korderas.
Yeah, the reffing list.
The reffing list.
Yes.
A couple of fans of the show were asking me to ask you certain questions, and like one of them was, obviously this is not a happy moment, but your memories of the night that unfortunately Owen passed away at the live event, and what's your recollection of that night? And I've seen it before, but this is just something that someone else wants to know, so I said I'd ask.
Yeah, it's so, it's one of those heartbreaking moments that's ingrained in your head that'll never go away. But the strange thing. Let me start at the beginning. I was the referee assigned to that match versus Owen versus the Godfather that night, and Owen was, for those who aren't totally familiar with the story, he was to descend from the rafters, and I don't know the particulars about the harness and all that, but apparently it was a quick release system that they had set up for him, and something went wrong. And right before the match was to take place, they had a hardcore match. I went to the ring early to help them clear some of the stuff out, and I was holding the top rope, kind of kicking stuff out of the ring, working myself towards that corner. When I heard a scream. I don't know what it was. A lot of people say it was Owen screaming, "Look out!" Basically, I don't have that. I can't definitively say that was what it was, but I heard some screaming, and I felt something brush against the side of my head and shoulder. But at that same instant, the top rope had snapped out of my hand, and it came back. So I didn't know if it was the rope had broke or somebody was throwing something. So I kind of did, like a ducking mode, like what's going on here. And when I turn around, I see Owen laying there in that corner, and I didn't put two and two together. It didn't, you know what I mean? You're just, you're shocked. And I knelt down and I kind of called to him a couple of times and there was no response. And, and I saw King coming over and I just freaked out and started, we need help, because there was no response, nothing. His eyes were like wide open, but there was nothing there. And, the paramedics came in, they immediately started the chest compressions and stuff like that, got him on the stretcher and got him to the ambulance. And I followed them back and watched them load him in. And again, I remember stuff like that distinctly, but then afterwards, I don't remember stuff like that. Was in Kansas City, Missouri. The next night we were in St. Louis, Missouri. I don't remember going from Kansas City to St. Louis. I don't know if we drove, we took a plane, a bus, whatever. I just don't remember going, how we got there. I just remember the next day when I got to the building, I ran into King, and he was the one who told me that he saw the last, like 20 feet or so of Owen's fall. And it was Owen who brushed up, against my side. And that's when it really hit me really hard. And then, then I ran into JR, who was head of talent relations at the time. And he said, "Are you okay?" I said, he says, "We'll send you home." I said, "No, I think I need to be here." You know what I mean? I think I need to be whatever everybody else is doing. I need to be doing, you know what I mean? And he said, "Okay." He says, "But if you need anything, you come to me." And then I ran into Taker, and Taker, same thing. He says, if you need anything, you come to me, and stuff like that. And later on that day, of course, running into Vince, and Vince came over and gave me a big hug and said, echoed pretty much as he says, are you going to be okay? I said, "Yeah, I'm here with everybody. I guess I'm going to be as okay as I'm going to be." He says, and he said, "You need anything, you need time off, you let me know." And under the problem though afterwards was I started to have this guilty conscience because I was thinking about how fortunate I was in this circumstance, and then started feeling guilty because there's a family that lost a son, a brother, a husband, a father, you know what I mean? And I'm thinking how lucky I am to not be another part of this situation. And again, now I've got those guilt feelings, and that was hard to deal with for a long, long time.
Yeah, it was that. I remember watching that show in Ireland live over here, and it was surreal. And I was still fairly young at the time, so I was trying to grasp, is this what it seems like? Because I would have only been 11 at the time.
Wow.
And it was definitely the saddest night in my memory of watching wrestling, for sure.
Yeah, it was a tragic night that unfortunately will forever be etched here.
Yeah. Were you surprised that the show went on that night? I
didn't know what to make of it because
it happened so fast.
Again, I wasn't there for the rest of the show because they took me to get checked out at the hospital as well because I was shaken up pretty good, and they just wanted to make sure everything was cool because at the time I didn't realize it, what I felt brushed. They just wanted to make sure everything was all right and stuff like that. And then I found out that the show continued. And of course, on one side you're saying, how could they continue the show? That's crazy. And then people keep talking about, well, the show must go on. I don't know what to make of it because something like this, there's no precedent. How do you prepare for something like this? Do you know what I mean? You don't expect something like this to happen. Yeah. Was it, in hindsight, I could say it was the wrong decision, but at the same time,
I don't think anyone would have complained or given out if the show was pulled that night.
I don't think so either. I don't think so. Given the circumstances, obviously, I don't think anybody would have complained.
Yeah. Right. We'll try to bring up the tone again, Jimmy.
Okay.
Yeah. Daniel Puder, that incident that happened. Yeah. I'm sure you're sick of talking about this, but here we go. Now, I had Doug, as I was saying to you earlier, Doug Basham on the podcast last night. He was talking about the segment that he done in Tough Enough, if you remember, with the flags, where the talent had to run and get the flags, and Doug and Danny had to keep them away from the flags.
Oh,
do you remember that?
I kind of half remember. See, I've taken a lot of ref bumps over the years, so some stuff that is still a little foggy. But I remember that day with Daniel Puder very well, because what they did was all during the day they had these guys doing these crazy, for lack of a better word, stunts like wind sprints and running back and forth and eating plates of pasta and doing all this stuff, trying to blow these guys up. And then the final segment was to take place in the ring. This was all taped earlier in the day, of course. And then the final segment was to take place in the ring on SmackDown, where they would do what they call burpees or squat thrusts until one guy was left standing. So, guys would get eliminated. And I want to say Dan Rodemeyer was declared the winner of that. If that was so, what you got for winning was, as someone who's completely blown up from doing this all day, you got to wrestle in an amateur wrestling match, Kurt Angle, an Olympic gold medalist. Now, to be fair, Kurt was not 100% because he was suffering from neck issues and stuff like that. Yeah. But he tied up Daniel. Anyways, it was no contest. So we thought that was it. And that was supposed to be the end of the segment. But Kurt walked over to look at the rest of the guys on the floor and said, okay, do any of you guys want to be next? And Daniel Puder put his hand up. And I looked at Charles and he looked at me and we were like, oh boy, what do we do here? Then I looked at Al Snow and I looked at Al and Al went, and I went, what are you going to do? You're on television now. Kurt's going to do what Kurt's going to do. So they get into it and they start wrestling around and they back up into a corner. And I'm not an MMA expert by any means, but I recognized the key lock or the Kimura that Daniel had Kurt in, and I just I just thought to myself, this is not good. Yeah. Especially for someone who's experiencing issues with his neck and blah, 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 and stuff like that. And I'm going, oh my goodness. So the biggest thought that comes into my mind, because I'm kind of peeking at Al, and Al's got that look on his face like, oh, this is not good. And I'm looking at Charles and we're both thinking, So my big thought was, how do we get out of this? How do we stop this? And by chance, they fell to the canvas and Kurt fell on top. And I don't know what made me think of this. I just dove down and counted 3. And in my mind, I'm thinking, I don't care what, I'm counting 3 regardless.
Yeah.
Which you saw after 2, Daniel kind of rolled the show. I didn't care. I'm counting 3 because this has to end. Because he wasn't letting go, and Kurt would rather lose his arm than tap to Daniel Puder. You know what I mean? Because that's how he's bred. And so I counted 3, rang the bell. They stood up. Kurt cut a bit of a promo on him, and Daniel was, yes, sir, yes, sir. He says, now get the hell out of my ring. And oh man, that was scary. But the fun part was when I got to the back. I'm walking through Gorilla, and Gerald Briscoe was there. Was manning Gorilla, because he was the one who was telling me in my earpiece, Jimmy, what are they doing? And I'm like, I don't know. He's kind of going into business for himself anyway. But as I walked through Gorilla, he was quiet. But as I was walking by, I looked at him. He looked at me and gave me the quiet thumbs up. Then I ran into Fit Finley in the back, and Fit looked at me. He says, did they tell you to count? I said, no, I just did it. It wasn't like I was thinking to myself, when I get the chance, I'm going to count. They just fell, and I just did it. He says, well, good on you. So, scary.
Interesting moment.
Yeah.
In 2005, you might remember this. I know you've taken a lot of fun. In 2005, WWE came over to Dublin and done an outdoor show in the RDS. Do you remember that show?
Oh,
there was 1,000 people there, and Steve Austin was there.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Did we do 2 nights there?
No, it was just one night outdoors.
Okay, I'm trying to remember.
But I'm trying, in the lead up to it, in the April, there was an April WrestleMania Revenge Tour. So after Mania, they came to Dublin, and they had an angle where JBL busted up John Cena. I think it was with a chair or something like that, and he was bleeding, whatever. And then GM Teddy Long came out and announced, it was almost like a Friday Night Smackdown. He came out and announced that we're going to need to sort this with a special guest referee in Ireland, Stone Cold Steve Austin, June the 18th, 2005. Oh. And I always wondered, why did that show happen outside in Ireland and not be televised?
I don't know. I guess I guess I don't know, because outside of North America, the UK has been kind of like the go-to place for WWE. Obviously, they're worldwide. We've been across the world: Australia, South Africa. You know what I mean? Like pretty much across Europe. But outside of North America, it almost feels like the UK is a priority. So I think they wanted to give them something special.
Yeah.
And having Stone Cold Steve Austin as a special referee, that's special.
Yeah, it was JBL versus Angle versus Cena with Steve Austin special guest referee.
I'm sure there were a few stunners thrown on that one.
There was stunners and beers everywhere.
Yeah.
At the end of the night, I actually met you that day ringside. I got a picture with you. I have it. I couldn't find it earlier. I have it somewhere.
Cool.
I was fortunate enough to get a front row ticket for that one, and I just said, "Hey Jimmy, can I get a picture?" You were like, "Yeah, cool."
Yeah,
no problem.
Well, awesome. At least I was nice to you, I think.
Yeah. I always found it with engaging with the staff at those kind of live events that everyone was cool, from ring announcers to referees. You know, the talent have to be a bit more careful.
Yeah, even Tony Chimmel was nice.
Yeah.
My old riding partner, we traveled everywhere together, so he just knew that I had to be the guy driving. That's all.
Bad driver.
No, I'm a bad passenger. I don't like to sit there, especially if it's a lengthy drive of 2 hours or more. And also the one driving was in control of the radio, so we had,
that's the rule.
We had dibs on the music.
Okay, what music would you play on the road?
Everything. I wish more people were like this today, when it comes to their wrestling and what they enjoy, because I like, contrary to popular opinion, I'm not just a WWE guy. I like all wrestling out there. I watch it all, and there's stuff I like from each company, and there's stuff that I critique from each company, and I wish would be better. But I want all companies to flourish and do well, because that's good for the business overall, and it's good for a lot of my friends who work at all these different companies. But getting back to the music, I listen to everything, man. I wasn't big on punk, but like I loved R&B, soul, classic rock. Very like. There's a station now on, I hate to plug it, on satellite radio called Yacht Rock Radio.
Yeah,
I listen to that stuff constantly. It's weird because, like I said before, after too many ref bumps, I don't remember a whole lot. But when all these songs come up from the 70s, I remember the words to every song that's on the radio. So but I like pretty much anything. I even listen to like Dean Martin, Frank Sinatra. It's
What do you think of Fozzy?
I like him. It's cool. It's infectious. You know what I mean? And it's working right now, because you see when Chris comes out on AEW and that song comes and his entrance music comes out, everybody's singing along. So it works.
Yeah.
See, that's the thing. It works.
Just a quick one on AEW. Do you think AEW would be as big as it is now without Chris Jericho?
That's hard to say. I know Chris Jericho really helped put them on the map. That is for sure, because when it comes to, he was their first world champion, AEW champion, and I think that was a great choice, because Chris is very smart, not only for himself, but he's also smart at helping get others established and over. He knows the value of that. So having him as their first champion, I think, was a big, huge step forward and got people interested. He was a big enough name to get people to tune in and say, "Hey, Chris Jericho's here. Let me tune in and see what this product's all about."
Yeah. Plus, if this Daniel Bryan and CM Punk rumors are true, that could really take him to the next level.
Yeah, it could. It definitely could elevate them. But it's also that 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. Yes, it's great to bring these talents in, huge names, huge stars, great talents. But at the same time, you've got lack of a better term, homegrown talents in AEW that might be getting overshadowed by these signings coming in, it's a good problem to have, because you're going to get the interest, but it's all in what you do forward with the guys that are going to be your long-term goal and your long-term future, because they have some great young talent there that could keep this company afloat for a long time.
Yeah. Got a fun question for you now, Jimmy. If you were stranded on a desert island and you needed to pick 3 wrestlers to survive on, who would they be?
3 wrestlers if I was stranded on a desert island? Oh, my goodness. Haku, because if there were any wild animals around, he would be the first guy I would hide behind. Probably the toughest. Steve Austin used to say he was the toughest SOB. My vote goes to King Tonga, aka Haku. So he would be on that list. Wow. I wouldn't want Big Show there because he'd eat everything. Mark Henry, maybe, because Mark Henry, the world's strongest man, if we needed to move some rocks and trees and stuff like that, he'd be the guy you'd want there too.
He'd come in handy.
Yeah. And wow. Who would be number 3?
Most people at this point will pick a female.
I know, I get that, but at the same time, yeah. Well, if I were, maybe because she's got a cookbook out and she's a friend, and maybe Renee Paquette. Yeah, because she can cook. So we have someone to feed us, provided we can bring her food. So there you go. You've got Mark Henry getting us the firewood. You've got Haku, providing our sustenance, and Renee can cook the meals. There you go.
Yeah, sorted.
We could survive.
Yeah, I want to talk to you about your book, the Tree Count. Yeah. What's in the book? Is it kind of a biography?
Yeah, it's kind of a story of my career in the ring and what happened after I left WWE to a certain extent. It's not an expose and a tell-all. It's just a bunch of me and my journey through this business that I loved, that I enjoyed, and am still passionate about. And for the most part, it was just me telling my story without an agenda. There's no motive behind it other than, hey, maybe I could sell a few books and tell the story from a guy who doesn't have an axe to grind. Do you know what I mean? Yes, there were times when this industry, it's not all biscuits and gravy, as they say, but at the same time, it's not work if you truly love what you're doing. And I truly love what I did, so I didn't view it as work. And I just wanted to tell that story. And who knows, maybe that book has been out for a while now, so maybe there's more stories to tell. Maybe there's a volume 2 in the works. You never know.
Yeah,
I don't want to give anything away, but you never know.
You never know. Yeah. Never say never.
Never say never. Exactly.
How do you fill out your days these days, Jimmy? Do you want to tell people what you do and where to catch you?
Yeah, we used to do a show up here in Canada called Aftermath, which was it's on hiatus now. We don't know if it's coming back, so hopefully it does. But in the meantime, I have other little side projects. One of them that I'm going to do the cheap plug for here. Oh, let me put it where it belongs. Is my daily ref and rants, which I go on my social media, and it's a 1-minute video. Whatever strikes my fancy as something as a critique, and it's not meant to throw people under the bus or bury certain individuals or certain storylines or whatever. It's meant as a critique. It's meant to, like I said, I want the industry as a whole to be better. And I just comment on what I find that could be improved on. Let's put it that way. So I put it out there on my Twitter, on my Instagram, on my Facebook, and that takes up a lot of time. And also cooking. I love cooking right now. So every once in a while, you'll see on my social media a little thing I like to call Ref to Chef, where I'll just post some pictures. My wife will take pictures of me preparing a meal, and I'll throw them out there. And not to be the Barry Horowitz, pat myself on the back guy, but I'm starting to get pretty good at it.
Yeah. Jimmy, it was an absolute pleasure to catch up with you today, man. I know we've been trying to work this out for a long time, but I really appreciate it, man. No, I appreciate it too, and I appreciate your patience because like I said, sometimes I'll have these stretches where, hey man, I got nothing lined up, and then all of a sudden it's like I can't get this in now, and But I appreciate your patience, I appreciate your time, and I appreciate you having me on. It was a lot of fun, man. It was. Yeah. Cheers, Jimmy. Thank you so much. Oh, my pleasure. Take care, my friend.